42 million viewers. That's how many Americans tuned in on a Tuesday night, not for a celebrity scandal, not for a sports final, but for a political debate branded as a routine discussion on ethics and transparency. But make no mistake, this wasn't going to be routine. The moment you stepped inside the studio, you could feel it. The air was too still, the lights were too sharp, and the silence. It didn't feel like the calm before a debate. It felt like the breath before a detonation. The set was polished to perfection. Blue ambient lighting gave the illusion of calm, but under that calm tension was coiled tight waiting. At the center of the stage stood two podiums, and behind them a massive LED wall quietly glowed Ethics and Transparency Forum National Debate Series. The title sounded noble, but tonight that wall wouldn't just display talking points. It would become a weapon. Behind the scenes, producers whispered urgently into headsets. Cameramen adjusted angles, cue cards were flipped, countdowns flashed on monitors. Everyone was ready. And then came the two women. Pam Bondi entered first, blonde, poised, wrapped in a tailored navy blue blazer. She moved like someone who had already won. Her every step was smooth, her gaze rehearsed. To many on the right, she was the voice of conservative clarity. To many on the left, she was a walking reminder of power defending power. Then Jasmine Crockett, dark curls pinned back, a calm presence wrapped in courtroom steel. She wasn't flashy, but every move she made felt intentional, like a chess piece waiting for the perfect board position. Her eyes scanned the room not for applause, but for tactics. Two podiums, two women, two very different kinds of power. Jasmine stood for grassroots voices, the teachers, the factory workers, the single parents who donated $5 bills folded into envelopes. Pam stood for the machine corporate dollars, think tanks, and polished lobbyist lunches. On the surface, this was just another policy night. But underneath, it was the kind of moment that makes or breaks reputations in a single line. No one said it out loud, but everyone felt it. One word tonight could change everything, and that word was already coming. It happened just 8 minutes in. Jasmine Crockett had barely finished laying out her argument, a measured, data-backed response about campaign finance laws, when Pam Bondi cut in. She didn't interrupt with facts. She didn't challenge with evidence. She simply pointed, dead center, straight at Jasmine. "You are unfit." 3 words delivered with ice-cold precision. Her voice didn't rise. She didn't need it to. She knew exactly what she was doing. The audience gasped, then laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was unexpected, brutal, personal. And that was the point. Pam didn't come to debate policy. She came to break character, to draw blood. The camera operator almost instinctively zoomed in on Jasmine's face. Tight frame, no escape. Her jaw stiffened. Her eyes didn't blink. For half a second, everything stopped. The lights, the hum of the studio. Even the moderator hesitated, because everyone was waiting for Jasmine to react. The room held its breath, cameras still, audience hushed. Even Pam Bondi paused, waiting for the fire to come back. But Jasmine Crockett didn't flinch. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't clap back. She just stared directly into the camera. Not at Pam, not at the committee, at the 42 million watching from home. And then she nodded, once slow, deliberate, like she wasn't acknowledging Bondi, but acknowledging something bigger. It wasn't surrender. It was a signal that said, "You hit me, but you missed the truth." In that moment, pain danced with power. Humiliation blurred with restraint. The nation didn't see a woman defeated. They saw a woman waiting, watching, calculating, waiting for her moment. And they knew it was coming. The internet exploded. Clips flooded Twitter. Comment sections divided like a nation at war. Some said she took the high road. Others sneered. She had nothing to say. But one question repeated. Why didn't Jasmine answer Pam Bondi back? Why didn't she swing, scream, defend? Was she frozen? Was she guilty? Or was she building something deeper to those who've ever been humiliated in public and forced to smile through the ache? You knew that silence. You recognized that nod. That wasn't weakness. That was strategy. That was survival in a room that wasn't built for her voice. She wasn't silent because she was small. She was silent because she knew something. Something no one else in that room expected. Something in the folders still sealed. The audience didn't just feel confusion. They felt something darker: injustice. They saw a woman who'd been publicly sliced open, and instead of bleeding, she stood still. And that stillness, it terrified everyone. 19 seconds. That's how long the silence lasted after Pam Bondi's words. "You are unfit." No one moved. No one spoke. The camera zoomed in. Jasmine Crockett didn't blink. The air heavy, thick. Even the hum of the studio lights seemed to hush. 001 Jasmine's eyes don't flinch. 003 a single breath quiet, controlled. 006 Pam smirks, thinking she won. 009 a low murmur starts from the audience then dies. 0012 a senator shifts uncomfortably in his seat. 04 and Jasmine's hand grips the desk just slightly. Her lips pressed together, not in fear, in restraint. 0018 a small nod, barely noticeable. 0019 she exhales, slowly, and the whole world waits for the storm that didn't come. Because this isn't a fight on Bondi's terms. This isn't about who shouts louder. This is a woman measuring the room. This is Jasmine Crockett holding her fury like a loaded weapon and choosing not to fire. Not yet. It happened in a blink. Jasmine Crockett gave the tiniest nod so small it could have been missed. But someone didn't miss it. Behind her, the LED wall, previously dim, silent, just background noise, suddenly ignited in cold blue. Numbers exploded across the screen. $2, $500,000, $2.5 million. Gas rippled through the room. Phones dropped, chairs creaked. Pam Bondi's smirk evaporated. Jasmine didn't say a word. She didn't need to, because that number hanging in the air wasn't just money. It was a message, a warning, a receipt. Someone had been paid someone important. And in that moment, Jasmine Crockett became more than just a witness. She became the storm. The screen didn't stop at $2.5 million. Suddenly, like a battle map lighting up targets, the LED wall transformed. PAC number 1, Liberty Forward Fund, date February 9th. Amount $750,000, linked allegations of racist voter suppression in Georgia. PAC number 2, Heritage Values Alliance, date March 3rd. Amount $1.2 million, linked lawsuit for discriminatory hiring practices. PAC number 3, Constitution Defenders United, date March 28. Amount $550,000, linked funded media campaign against affirmative action. The audience murmured. Senators shifted in their seats. Even the cameraman looked up. Pam Bondi's eyes flicked left then right, her lips pressed into a thin line, but the camera zoomed in anyway, capturing the panic blooming beneath her powder foundation. And Jasmine, still silent, still unblinking. She had weaponized the truth, and now the war had begun. The camera didn't blink, and neither did the nation. Pam Bondi stood frozen, caught mid-breath, her eyes wide for a fraction too long. It was subtle, but it was enough. The left corner of her mouth twitched. Her fingers resting on the desk gripped just a little tighter. A bead of sweat danced along her temple. The lights weren't hotter, but she was burning. Behind her, the screen still flashed the names of PACs and one line at the bottom in red verified via federal election records. The room, once electric with political bravado, was now a vacuum. You could hear a pin drop. The audience leaned forward some with their mouths slightly open. They weren't watching a debate anymore. They were watching something fall apart, and Bondi knew it, but her lips parted anyway. A voice thin and brittle escaped. These are just political donations. It wasn't defiance. It wasn't confidence. It was survival instinct. But Jasmine didn't even flinch. It started with a whisper, but within hours it was everywhere. One phrase, just 5 words, delivered like a bullet, corruption wearing a smile. Jasmine had said it quietly, almost like a personal note, but the mic was still live, and the world heard it. News anchors paused mid-sentence to repeat it. Podcasts opened with it. Late-night hosts built entire monologues around it. And online Twitter, Reddit, TikTok, Facebook, all of them burned with that one sentence. Not just because it was clever, but because it was true. Because people had felt it for years, but no one had named it. Until Jasmine did. And that's when something shifted. She wasn't just a congresswoman anymore. She became a symbol of restraint under fire, of truth spoken in whispers, of calling evil out even when it smiles. At first there was only silence, heavy, electric, the kind of silence that makes your heart beat louder than the room. Then clap, one single clap from the back row, then another, then a wave. It started to rise like a storm, a wave of applause building crashing against the silence. And then from the upper balcony, a voice tore through the air like lightning. That's right, raw, unfiltered. A voice like it had waited a decade to be heard. Jasmine didn't move. She didn't flinch. She just stared ahead, eyes filled with something deeper than pride. In that moment, she wasn't alone anymore. Pam Bondi leaned forward, her voice calm, but her fingers trembled ever so slightly on the table. That's legal. It was all disclosed. I followed every rule. The words came out measured like someone trying to fix a shattered mirror with Scotch tape. But no one was listening anymore. The LED behind Jasmine still glowed 2.5 for 3 packs racial lawsuit dates. CNN, MSNBC, Fox, even fringe networks. Every outlet had started pulling up Bondi's donation history. And the dam broke. Legal doesn't mean right. Not when it's built on the backs of the silenced. Her voice faded, her control gone. And for the first time that evening, the nation wasn't focused on Bondi's rebuttal. It was focused on Jasmine's silence and what it had just exposed. It started with a clip just 30 seconds long. Pam Bondi's sharp jab, Jasmine Crockett's silent nod. The LED flash, 2.5M has. And then that one line, corruption wears a smile. Within 6 minutes, it hit Twitter's trending page. Within 20, it was on TikTok, Instagram Reels, even old Facebook groups for veterans and teachers. #unfit Pam, #Crockett truth. She didn't blink. People didn't just watch, they felt it. The shame, the strength, the sweet seismic shift of power. Finally, someone wrote someone quiet didn't back down. She turned silence into a sword. Even major news outlets couldn't ignore it. That 30-second clip, it became a battle cry for the unheard. And for the first time in a long time, the underdog had the upper hand. Pam Bondi didn't scream. She didn't storm out. No, she picked up the phone, called in a favor, and demanded a special hearing. We need answers, she said on national television. Crockett should be held accountable in front of the committee. The timing was surgical, less than 18 hours after the broadcast. No time for Jasmine to prepare, no warning. Just a subpoena signed, sealed, and dropped at her office before sunrise. To the public, it looked like procedure. To insiders, it reeked of revenge. A courtroom, yes, but this wasn't about justice. It was a trap, a performance disguised as protocol. Pam wasn't done, not by a long shot. The room was designed to break her. Empty chairs, fluorescent lights humming like a warning, reporters whispering in corners. 3 cameras, 2 microphones, 1 empty seat at the center. Jasmine Crockett walked in alone. No entourage, no lawyer beside her. Just a small black folder in her hand, and calm, like the eye of a storm. Ms. Crockett, the chairman, began. Do you understand the gravity of these allegations? She nodded, slowly. Not because she agreed, but because she had seen worse. Behind her, quiet was strategy. Behind her, folder was fire. What Bondi didn't know was that Jasmine didn't come to defend herself. She came to expose them. She opened the folder like it was a weapon. Not fast, not theatrical, just precise. Slide 1A bar graph clear, bold, irrefutable. These are my campaign donors, Jasmine said calmly. Small checks, individual names, teachers, nurses, veterans. The camera zoomed in on names and dollar amounts. $15, $25, $42, and hundreds of them. Slide 2 Bondi's donor list, corporations, PACs under litigation, shell companies linked to racial discrimination lawsuits. Now here's Ms. Bondis, Chevron, Parkwell Pharma, and Zern Tech, currently under federal investigation. Gasps, movement in the crowd. Even one of the moderators blinked. Jasmine didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to, because the numbers did the shouting. The room fell completely silent. Even the soft hum of the air conditioner felt louder than breath. Then the chairman leaned forward, tapping his mic gently. A second of static. Then his voice. After careful review of the documents presented, this committee finds no evidence of ethical misconduct by Representative Crockett. A beat, 2 beats. Bondi's face didn't move, then twitched. A ripple passed through the room. Then a woman stood. Then a man. Then the whole chamber erupted in thunderous applause. Some clapped in relief, some in respect, many in pure catharsis. Jasmine just closed her folder and smiled. Pam Bondi, still sitting, still blinking, still trying to process how she lost the very game she thought she'd rigged. The backdrop is soft beige. A glowing sign reads, Morning Whisper. Pam Bondi sits center stage. Her makeup is lighter than usual, smile warmer, but rehearsed. A steaming mug sits untouched in her lap. Honestly, she says with a soft chuckle, it was all just a misunderstanding. These things get blown out of proportion on the internet. The host nods politely. The audience gives a scattered laugh, unsure whether to cheer or cringe, but the damage is done. Every time she says misunderstanding, a million people rewatch that 30-second clip where she pointed cold and sharp. You are unfit. She tries to reframe herself as the victim misjudged, misquoted, misunderstood. But her eyes twitch slightly when asked, do you still believe Jasmine Crockett is unfit to serve? She smiles, pauses, takes a sip, never answers. The interview had barely ended, but Twitter, the entire internet was already on fire. Screenshots of official filings, highlighted donation logs, scanned checks, even timestamps matching the LED board from Jasmine's showdown. #Bondi lied trends within an hour. Another tag, #receipts, don't lie, a viral thread appears. Here are the exact documents Jasmine referenced. No edits, no spin, just cold hard facts. Each retweet is a blow to Bondi's carefully controlled narrative. People zoom in, they analyze line by line. Her soft chuckles on the morning show now feel manipulative. A YouTube creator posts a reaction video titled Pam's Damage Control. Just blew up in her face, it hits 4 million views overnight. For every smile she gave the camera, the receipts grinned back harder. While Bondi toured studios with her rehearsed smile, Jasmine chose silence but not surrender. No champagne, no victory tweet. Instead, she booked a school gymnasium in her district, set up folding chairs, a single mic, no teleprompter, no press. She called it the voices they ignored. Dozens came. A black mother whose son was passed over for a promotion. A Latino engineer silenced after reporting harassment. An Asian nurse fired after exposing unsafe hospital practices. Jasmine didn't speak first. She listened. When she did take the mic, it wasn't about Bondi. It was about systems, power, silence, and how to break all three. A clip goes viral not for drama, but for truth. This isn't a performance. This is repair work. In a media world trained to chase chaos, Jasmine had pivoted to healing, and it hit harder than any mic drop. A retired factory worker took the mic. His hands trembled, his voice cracked. They told me I was too slow, but I was the only black worker there. He tried to smile. He couldn't. His lips quivered. Then tears fell, decades of injustice finally finding air. The room was silent. Then came a soft gasp. Then another. Next, a middle-aged teacher stood up. She clutched a folder of pink slips. They told me that parents complained. But I saw the emails. My white colleagues made the same lesson plans. Her voice didn't rise, but her truth did. And it hit everyone like a wave. Jasmine didn't interrupt. She stood in the back, watching, listening, and wiping a tear herself. This wasn't a political rally. This was a reckoning. And for the first time, the audience saw it clear. This is the true cost of corruption paid in human dignity. 30 seconds of viral video changed everything. But Jasmine Crockett knew if it ended on social media, it meant nothing. She didn't celebrate. She didn't post a victory selfie. Instead, she walked into a conference room at Capitol Hill. Alone, determined, she placed a thin folder on the table. It's time we make political money transparent, she said. I'm introducing the Public Trust Act. The room shifted. No one expected her to go further, but she did. The act would require all campaign donations over $1,000 to be reported in real time. All PACs linked to civil rights violations flagged publicly. Corporations funding candidates while under federal lawsuits exposed. It wasn't just bold. It was dangerous to the powerful. But Crockett had one thing they didn't. The truth, and now the law. They didn't scream. They didn't protest on TV. No, the real power never needs to raise its voice. They buy silence. They buy influence. And now Jasmine Crockett had made enemies of people who had never heard the word no. The first signs were subtle. A lobbyist she'd worked with for years suddenly went cold. A media outlet pulled her interview last minute. An anonymous op-ed questioned her mental fitness for office. It escalated. Her team's emails were hacked. A false rumor spread that she misused campaign funds. Even her family received strange silent phone calls at 2 a.m. It wasn't a smear campaign. It was a warning. They didn't want to defeat her. They wanted her to quit. They tried to isolate her, but they forgot one thing. She didn't speak for herself. She spoke for millions, and millions answered back. At first, it was a few emails, then a dozen handwritten letters, then hundreds, then thousands, from Alabama to Alaska, from small towns to big cities, from retired nurses to high school students. You stood up for me, so I'm standing with you. Don't let them silence you. You made me believe again. One letter came from a Vietnam War veteran who hadn't voted in 20 years. Another from a single mom in Michigan who donated her last $5. A classroom of third graders sent hand-drawn cards with stars and hearts, and one sentence repeated again and again. Thank you for being brave. The machine had power, but now Jasmine had people. The pile of letters had become a mountain. But one envelope was different. It was small, folded unevenly, decorated with glitter and 3 smiley faces. Inside was a letter, written in crayon, spelled imperfectly. Dear Ms. Crockett, you make me want to be a lawyer sick, because lawyer help people. When I am big, I want to be like you. Love, Maya, age 7. Jasmine read it in silence. Tears welled up in her eyes, not from pain, but from purpose. She had been insulted, mocked, doubted. But this was a legacy, because one little girl in a small town now believed that the law wasn't just for the rich, or the powerful, or the white. It was for the brave, it was for her, and it was for all of us. No fanfare, no flashy backdrop, just a plain podium and a woman who had been dragged through fire. The cameras clicked, journalists murmured. Then Jasmine Crockett stepped forward. She wasn't smiling, she wasn't bitter, she was ready. She looked directly into the sea of flashing lights and said just one thing: I didn't come here to win arguments. I came to speak truth, and truth stood with me. No dramatic music, just silence. The kind of silence that comes when the world realizes she never needed to yell to be heard. She just needed to stand, and now she wasn't standing alone anymore. Pam Bondi didn't call a press conference, didn't issue a statement, didn't post a tweet. She vanished. No lawsuits, no legal threats, no teary TV interviews. Just silence. In an era where everyone speaks even when they shouldn't, Bondi said nothing. And in that silence, America heard the loudest admission of all. She wasn't silenced. She simply had nothing left to say. There were no flashing cameras, no podium, no reporters shouting questions. Jasmine Crockett walked into the community center alone, no entourage, no PR team. Inside the room was small, but it was full. Mothers holding babies, elders leaning on canes. Young people in hoodies, eyes wide with hope. They didn't cheer, they didn't ask for speeches. They just welcomed her, like family. And for the first time in months, Jasmine smiled, not for the cameras, but for herself. Because some battles aren't fought for applause. They're fought for these moments where justice feels like home. The room was quiet, the kind of quiet where you can hear your own heartbeat. Jasmine didn't give a speech. She just looked around the room at faces that had seen struggle and hope, and then she asked, if this moment came to you, would you stand up or stay silent? No one answered. They didn't have to, because the question wasn't meant for the room. It was meant for you. And when the screen fades to black, you realize your answer might define the kind of world we all live in tomorrow. In life, truth and justice don't just happen. They're protected by people willing to stand up even when it's risky, uncomfortable, or lonely. You don't always have to be the loudest voice in the room, but when the moment comes, what matters is that you're not silent. Every action, no matter how small, can spark a ripple effect. And sometimes it only takes one person standing tall to change the course of an entire story. You've just seen a story that's not just about politics. It's about courage, justice, and the power of one voice. If you believe truth deserves to be told and justice deserves to be heard, hit that subscribe button, turn on the bell, and share this video. Because when we speak up together, silence never wins.